She was the last of her kind, until he claimed her as his mate. What if claiming a stranger, an alien fugitive standing seconds from execution, meant rewriting the fate of the galaxy? In a universe where power is protected by silence and love is seen as a liability, one human made a split-second decision that changed everything. Bound Beyond Stars is a story about Jaxen Roe, a man who wanted nothing more than to disappear, and Thalina Virel, the last of a forgotten race encoded with the power to dismantle empires. Together, their accidental bond becomes a beacon, an outlaw connection capable of shaking the very foundations of the sovereign axis. This isn't just a sci-fi romance. It's a revolution disguised as intimacy. A reluctant hero. An alien woman no one was meant to save. And a lie so powerful, it became truth. Stay with us, because this is the kind of love that ignites stars and burns down systems. The stars didn't sing out here. They hissed low, bitter things like static from an old signal that refused to die. Jaxen Roe leaned against the hull of his ship, boots kicked up on a fuel drum, watching the light of the dying red giant above Obsidian Verge flicker like a failing neon sign. He'd seen hundreds of stars, whole constellations rise and vanish, but this one made him feel something close to tired. A rusted sign buzzed overhead. Docking Bay 6, no loitering. He ignored it, as he ignored most warnings by instinct. Inside his jacket, a data chip hummed faintly. Hot cargo. Unregistered. And completely beneath his attention. Another delivery made, another quiet credit deposit into an account that would never get full, never stay clean. The paradox vein, his rust bucket of a ship needed new inertial dampeners. He needed sleep. Instead, he lit a synth smoke, watching it coil like ghost breath toward the scorched ceiling. Another day in the Verge, he muttered, voice dry and low. Then came the sirens. Not the kind that wailed. The kind that pulled. He heard the commotion first. Footsteps, hundreds of them echoing through metal corridors like water breaking through a dam. Shouting. A voice over the intercom, sterile and sharp. Public execution to commence in Sector Hall 9. All civilians permitted to witness. He groaned. Executions were bad for business. Crowds meant checkpoints. Checkpoints meant ID scans. And if anyone scanned his past too deeply. Nope. He stood, brushing soot off his coat, and turned toward the opposite direction where the steam vents were thicker, the lighting worse, and anonymity nearly guaranteed. But then he heard the word. Myrian. He stopped. Not out of curiosity. Not even out of pity. Out of memory. The Myrians were extinct. Or supposed to be. Ancient beings with glowing skin, dangerous biology, and a rumored link to the terraforming tech that reshaped the colonized stars. They were beautiful, yes. But also illegal. Jaxen had only seen one years ago. On a battlefield he didn't talk about. One look, and he hadn't slept right since. So what the hell was a Myrian doing alive? And on Verge Station, of all places? He found himself walking not away, but toward the crowd. Toward the heat of it. As if some old part of him had flickered back on. Sector Hall 9 was a massive dome, black glassed and ringed with spotlights. The crowd moved like a single body, tense and humming. Everyone pressed forward, humans, mechborns, starweavers, Rifkin, united by the universal curiosity that came before death. And there, on a raised hexagonal platform beneath twin security drones, stood her. Bound at the wrists. Head held high. Thalina. He didn't know her name yet, but it bloomed in his mind like it had always been there. She didn't look afraid. She looked angry. Her skin shimmered like moonlight on oil violet and silver, impossibly soft and impossibly dangerous. Her eyes, a radiant shade of cyan green, searched the crowd like she was scanning every soul for a way out. And then somehow she looked at him. Across the bodies, the lights, the haze of collective breath, she found him. And she didn't blink. Her lips barely moved. But he saw it. A word. A plea. Only one. Help. Time didn't stop. It shrank. Became smaller than a breath. Smaller than a choice. Jaxen's chest tightened. The crowd was quiet now. The Sovereign Warden read out the charges in a metallic monotone. Genetic weaponry. Technological subversion. Threat to the Axis. He could turn and walk away. Just like always. Just like his instincts told him. But then she looked at him again, this time not asking. Trusting. And Jaxen Roe did something stupid. He stepped forward, hand raised. She's mine, he said loudly. Voices turned. Heads swiveled. I mean, he cleared his throat, a little louder now. She's my bondmate. I claim her under Section 44.7 of Interspecies Protection Code. The warden froze. The crowd murmured. Thalina blinked once and then smiled. And that smile changed everything. For a second, just one, Jaxen thought no one had heard him. The silence felt thick, syrupy, like the galaxy itself had paused to decide whether to laugh or aim a gun at him. Then the Sovereign Warden turned. 7 feet of composite armor and enhanced genetics, his face partially obscured by a mirrored mask. His voice crackled from behind it, slow and disbelieving. You are claiming the prisoner as your bonded mate. Jaxen swallowed hard. Yes. That's what I said. Someone in the crowd gasped. Someone else laughed nervously. A camera drone floated closer. Thalina's smile had faded, but her expression wasn't fear, it was calculation. She tilted her head, as if studying him more carefully now, like an unexpected card had been played and she was already 3 moves ahead. The warden stepped closer, mechanical boots clicking against the platform. And your species? Human. Obviously, Jaxen muttered. You need me to cough for a DNA sample. Not the best time for sarcasm, he admitted internally. The warden ignored it. Under Sovereign Axis regulation, a declared bond must be verified by a neural scan and witnessed by at least one official arbiter. If this claim is false, the penalty is immediate execution for both parties. Jaxen's mouth went dry. He glanced around. No one was moving to help. No one ever did. The crowd smelled blood now. They were waiting to see if the fool would flinch. He looked up at Thalina. She held his gaze like a lifeline made of fire. Her voice was low but audible as she said, I acknowledge his claim. Gasps again. Then the crowd roared, not in approval, but in sheer chaos. The law was obscure, nearly ancient. Hardly anyone invoked it anymore. But it was real. And now it was alive again, with the power to halt a sanctioned execution. Jaxen stepped onto the platform, heart pounding so hard it almost drowned out the noise. The moment he crossed the threshold, the security drones hovered back, confused by protocol overrides. One of them scanned his retinal ID. He barely noticed. He only saw her. Up close, Thalina was even more unnerving. Her skin wasn't just glowing, it shifted with faint constellations, stardust moving beneath the surface. Her scent hit him like a memory he didn't have: clean, electric, floral, dangerous. You are either incredibly brave, she whispered, or profoundly unwise? Can it be both? Jaxen replied hoarsely. Her lips twitched. It often is. She leaned into him not just for show, but to whisper in his ear. This will spiral quickly. Do not show weakness. Oh, I'm way past weakness, he muttered. I'm free falling. The warden turned to his console, speaking rapidly into a private channel. Protocols. Verification. Blood scans. DNA lock overrides. Thalina moved closer, her bound hands brushing against his coat. Why? She asked under her breath. Why what? Why did you claim me? You don't know me. Jaxen exhaled shakily. You asked for help. I mouthed a word, she said, incredulous. That could have meant anything. It didn't. He looked her in the eye. I don't know how I know that. I just do. For the first time, her composure cracked just a flicker. Not fear. Something like hope. It was gone in a heartbeat, replaced by a regal calm. The warden turned back. Your neural signatures are now linked. The bond is recognized temporarily pending finalization within 3 standard cycles. What does that mean? Jaxen asked. It means, Thalina said smoothly, we're married, darling. At least for the next few weeks. Jaxen blinked. Oh. The bindings around her wrists released with a soft hiss. She stepped forward, standing beside him. The light caught the silver in her eyes, and for the first time, he felt it not just panic, not just heat but a connection, strange and alive, threading through his chest and hers like a current. You just changed everything, she murmured. So I've been told, Jaxen said. But I'm usually too drunk for it to matter. The warden raised a hand and addressed the crowd. Per Axis law, the execution is suspended. The prisoner is under the protection of her declared bondmate. This proceeding is closed. Chaos erupted. Half the crowd shouted in confusion or anger. The other half began recording or retreating, unsure if law or myth had just saved a life. As guards moved to restore order, Thalina reached for Jaxen's hand. Now, she said, her voice calm but urgent, we run. He didn't ask where. Or why. Or what in all the hells he had just signed up for. He just ran with her, fingers locked tight around the hand of the most dangerous, beautiful woman in the galaxy. They ran. Not just through the halls of Obsidian Verge but through layers of law, protocol, and the illusion of safety. Jaxen didn't think. He reacted. Followed Thalina's lead as she wove them through maintenance corridors, half-lit access shafts, and through a derelict docking zone the authorities had forgotten about. Alarms blared overhead, first local, then wideband. Wanted, unregistered human Myrian bond pair. Detained for council interrogation. Jaxen skidded to a halt beside a rusted door and slapped the emergency override. They bought it, he gasped. They actually bought it. No, Thalina said, slipping through the hatch. They believe it. That's worse. Jaxen followed her into darkness. The old hangar was cold and empty, except for a spiderweb of old cables and pressure leak warnings that blinked faintly on the walls. Somewhere deeper, a fan hummed broken, breathless. Explain, he said, panting. Please. What just happened? She turned to him, silhouetted by flickering red lights. We just weaponized a technicality? Jaxen stared. I saved your life. Yes, she said gently. And now mine is tied to yours. By law, by biometry, by perception. And perception is the dangerous part. Thalina nodded once. You're now the only reason I'm alive. Which means you're also a threat. To who? Her eyes flicked toward the ceiling, where security feeds would be crawling with alerts. To everyone who wants me gone. Which is a long list. She moved past him, locating a hidden panel and prying it open. Inside was a sleek, narrow case with strange geometric patterns on its surface. What's that? My last contingency, she said. My people, what's left of them. We built our tech to hide from empires. I've been hiding for a long time. But now. Her voice trailed off. Jaxen stepped closer. Now you're not hiding anymore? No, she whispered, then looked at him. Because you didn't. You didn't hide. He shrugged, uncomfortable. I panicked. No, she said, fiercer this time. You saw me. And you claimed me. The words landed harder than he expected. Not because they were untrue, but because they echoed in his chest like a lock turning. I just said what came to mind, he muttered. Thalina smiled. Not a mocking smile, but something deep. Sad. Grateful. And I believed you, she said quietly. Because no one's done that for us. For my kind. Not in 100 years. Jaxen rubbed his face. Well, I didn't exactly plan to get married today. She laughed, a soft sound that, despite everything, made something tight and sweetly in his throat. Neither did I, she replied. But now that we're pair-bonded, it's best we make it convincing. He glanced at her sideways. Convincing to who? To the Axis. To anyone watching. And, to the systems that track neural pairings. Jaxen's brow furrowed. Wait. You're saying there's, like, a psychic component to this? It's not romantic, she said, though her voice caught slightly. It's ancient tech. Neural echo patterns. When we linked hands on the platform, it initiated the interface. His stomach dropped. So they can feel what we feel? To a degree? Well, that's horrifying. She chuckled again. Where are we going? He asked. My ship's gone, she said. Yours is now ours. Jaxen blinked. The paradox vein? You want to escape on a ship that leaks oxygen in 2 cabins and sinks to itself during hyperspace alignment. Is it fast? It's a miracle it flies. She placed a hand on his chest, eyes suddenly serious. Then it'll do. They moved again, this time with urgency but calm, like two people who no longer had the luxury of doubt. The bond had begun as a lie, a flinch in the face of injustice. But now it was morphing into something else. Something real. They slipped into the private hangar bay where the vein awaited, her crooked frame resting like an old bird pretending not to be wounded. Jaxen keyed the hatch, and it hissed open with reluctant groans. You really trust me? He asked as she stepped aboard. I don't have a choice, she said. But I'm starting to think that's a good thing. The ship powered on. The lights flickered. The NAV console spat warnings in 12 languages. But she was flying. Behind them, the station sealed. The Axis would come. The lie they'd told would spread. And the bond they had forged, however accidental, would grow teeth. As stars bled into motion and the verge fell away behind them, Thalina touched her fingers to his temple. Tell me something true, she whispered. Jaxen met her gaze. I don't know who I am anymore, he said. Her expression softened. Then let's find out together. The paradox vein groaned like it was resentful of being alive. In the cockpit, warning lights blinked with casual indifference, as if daring Jaxen to care. He flicked 2 switches and smacked the console. "Don't give me attitude," he muttered. "You still owe me from Vega?" Thalina sat in the co-pilot seat, cross-legged, her eyes closed and palms open on her knees. She hadn't spoken much since takeoff. Something in her had gone quiet, not cold, but focused. Her skin, that glowing violet map of secrets, shimmered in rhythm with the hum of the ship's core. Jaxen kept stealing glances. Not just because she was beautiful, which she was, but because she seemed designed for more. Like everything about her had purpose, even her stillness. "You okay?" he asked, breaking the silence. Her eyes opened bright green, with vertical pupils that looked too old for her face. "I'm calibrating," she said. "The bond triggers subtle changes." He raised an eyebrow. "In you?" "In both of us." "Great," Jaxen sighed, rubbing his temple. "I've always wanted glowing skin and ancient alien enemies." A faint smile curved her lips. "You might not glow. But something is happening. You feel it, don't you?" He opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. Because he did. Since the bond, there was a presence inside him. A quiet awareness. Not intrusive. Not loud. Just there. Like an echo of her heartbeat inside his chest. "It's like a tether," he admitted. She nodded. The Myrian bond was never symbolic. It was genetic. Neural. Bioempathic. "You mean emotional?" "I mean everything," she said softly. "Emotion is the doorway. But behind it there's code." She tapped the case she had retrieved earlier. It lay across her lap now, open to reveal something unlike anything Jaxen had ever seen, a crystalline scroll of glowing tendrils and shifting symbols that rearranged themselves when he looked too long. "This," she said, "is the key." "To what?" "To why they want me dead." He stared. "I'm gonna need a bigger explanation than that." Thalina turned the scroll, letting the faint bioluminescence wash across her fingers. "Myrians weren't just artists or scientists," she began. "We were anchors. Our bodies, our blood were interwoven with terraforming protocols. Genetic memory interfaces. Every Myrian could shape environmental code by instinct. Like living OS systems." She tilted her head. "More like living permissions." Jaxen blinked. "So you're saying your DNA can rewrite planetary systems?" "Not just planetary," she said. "Cultural. Political. Energy flows. Authority structures." He stared at her, stunned. "You're not just a fugitive. You're a living override switch." Thalina met his gaze. Her voice was calm. "Exactly." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The ship floated through the edge of the drift expanse, stars stretched like scars across the black. Then Jaxen muttered, "I thought you were just hot and doomed. Turns out you're hot, doomed, and galactically destabilizing." Thalina snorted an unexpected, involuntary laugh. The sound caught them both off guard. "You're absurd," she said. He grinned. "You're just now figuring that out." Her smile faded, gently this time. "You still have a choice, you know. To unbind. Dissolve the bond. Walk away." Jaxen leaned back, stretching his legs under the console. "And let them execute you?" "Nah. You didn't ask for this," she said. "I didn't ask for most of my life," he replied. "Still lived it." Thalina watched him carefully. There's more to you, Jaxen Roe. You joke to hide it, but I feel it under the surface. You've run from something, or someone. He tensed. That's not part of the deal, he said flatly. No, she agreed. But neither was saving me. Her voice had changed. Lower. Quieter. Vulnerable, not weak. I don't need you to be a hero, she said. I just need you to be honest. Jaxen looked at her. For once, no smirk. No sarcasm. I don't know how to be, he admitted. She reached across the console and took his hand. That, she said, is the most honest thing you've said since we met. The connection sparked between them again brighter now. Their hands warmed. Something shifted in the ship's energy field like it recognized them as one unit now, one pulse. The scroll in Thalina's lap responded, its tendrils flaring, then collapsing inward. It's responding to you, she whispered. He jerked his hand away. I'm not Myrian. No, she said. But the bond, it's sinking you. You're not just my protector now, Jaxen. You're my amplifier. His throat tightened. Then we're in trouble, he whispered. Because I don't know what I'm doing. Thalina leaned in, her forehead nearly touching his. Her breath smelled like frost and something wild. Then we'll learn together, she said. Before they come for us again. Outside, in the black between systems, something stirred. And the stars began to shift. The ship was too quiet. Jaxen knew quiet. He'd grown up with it, quiet like graves, like guilt, like the cold air just before a firefight. But this wasn't that. This was the kind of silence that had intent. He blinked off the NAV display. They were alone in a drift expanse, a hollow stretch of space so dark it bent radio signals. It should have been safe. It wasn't. Something's wrong, he muttered. Thalina sat cross-legged on the floor of the central cabin, eyes closed, skin pulsing faintly as if reading the electric heartbeat of the ship. She opened her eyes before he even finished the sentence. I feel it too. The paradox vein creaked. Not from its usual protesting, this was new. A vibration, almost too faint to hear, rippled through the hull. Jaxen stood, instincts flaring. We're being boarded. No proximity alarms, Thalina said, rising. He checked the console again. Nothing on scans. No exterior clamps. No breach signal. She stepped forward, her voice calm but taut. Then they're already inside. A pulse of adrenaline flooded his limbs. He reached for the hidden panel under the pilot's seat and drew out an old kinetic pistol, rusted, heavy, reliable. I hate being right, he muttered. Thalina didn't take a weapon. She just stood taller. Her skin shimmered brighter, patterns crawling down her arms in glowing lines like shifting constellations. Don't use the main corridor, she said, eyes narrowing. They'll expect that. You know this tactic. I used to be the one boarding. They slipped into the maintenance crawlspace, a narrow tube that ran between the ship's systems. It was dark, cramped, and smelled like solder and regret. Jaxen moved first, Thalina behind him, silent as memory. They emerged near the cargo bay. That's when they heard it. Movement. Soft. Calculated. Not just one intruder. At least three. Jaxen held up a hand, and Thalina crouched low behind a stack of old atmosphere regulators. He took aim around the crate, then froze. The invaders wore full stealth suits, adaptive armor woven with face fiber, designed to flicker between visibility states. Their weapons were slender, silver, and deadly, ionic disruptors, illegal in most systems. Assassins. Not soldiers. That meant one thing. "They're here for you," he whispered. Thalina didn't answer. Her expression said everything. Jaxen gritted his teeth. "Stay back. You'll die," she said. "Yeah," he replied, "but I'll look heroic doing it." And then everything moved at once. One of the assassins stepped forward just enough for Jaxen to fire. The shot hit the target's shoulder, sending them spinning back into a supply rack with a grunt of pain. Another flickered to the left, flanking. Jaxen pivoted, fired again, missed. A third assassin lunged from above. And that's when Thalina unleashed. She moved like starlight compressed into form, too fast, too fluid. Her hand extended, and the air around her bent. A ripple passed through the room, unseen but felt, like a gravity tremor. The third assassin froze mid-air, suspended. Not paralyzed. Disassembled. Their weapon clattered to the ground, the suit deactivating in a burst of flickering light. The body inside slumped forward alive, but dazed. Jaxen stared. What the hell was that? Thalina turned to him, eyes glowing like twin suns. My blood. My code. The remaining assassin fired at her. She didn't move. The blast stopped midair. Hung there like a drop of mercury caught in zero gravity. Then it reversed, snapping back, striking the shooter square in the chest. They went down without a sound. Silence returned. Jaxen lowered his gun slowly. His hands were trembling. His voice came out hollow. You're not just dangerous. Thalina met his eyes, calm but solemn. I'm illegal. Jaxen stepped toward her. You saved me. I leveled the field. No, he said. You could have run. You didn't. She looked at him like she was seeing something deeper than his face, like she was reading him the way her code reads systems. You would have done the same, she said. I don't have your gifts. You have something else, she whispered. He didn't ask what. Because her hand reached for his. Not with desperation. Not for show. But because she wanted to. He took it. For a moment, the ship's lights flickered, not in warning, but in resonance. The entire vessel adjusted its hum, syncing to their pulse, their neural frequencies, the bond between them. In the corner, one of the fallen assassins groaned softly. Jaxen pulled his hand away and approached the downed figure. He crouched. Who sent you? The assassin coughed, bloodied but conscious. You should have let her die. Why? She's the last lock. Thalina stepped beside him. What does that mean? The assassin's eyes fluttered. The sovereign Axis, they don't fear war. They fear rewrite. And then he died. No drama. No final words. Just silence. Again. Jaxen stood slowly. They are scared of you? They should be, Thalina said, voice like steel wrapped in silk. Because I'm not alone anymore? He looked at her. The strange warmth of her skin. The way her presence filled a room without trying. He wasn't just her protector now. He was her trigger. And together, they were starting to feel like a weapon. The Paradox vein limped toward the shadow port of Black Fall Station, a skeletal cluster of domes clinging to a fractured asteroid deep in the drift expanse. It wasn't on any official charts. Which was exactly why Jaxen had programmed it into his NAV years ago. They needed repairs. Fuel. Silence. and someone who could decode what lived in Thalina's veins. As they made final descent, Jaxen didn't look at the station. His eyes were locked on the COMM screen, where a girl's face shimmered into view, a mess of freckles, curly black hair, and oversized goggles. "Hey, dumbass," she chirped. "Took you long enough." "Myra," Jaxen exhaled. "I need your help." She blinked. Then noticed Thalina standing beside him. "Oh. You brought a girl. Wow. That explains the radio silence." Thalina tilted her head, eyes bright with curiosity. "Is she always like this?" Jaxen groaned. "Worse in person." They docked. Myra met them at the airlock, bouncing on the balls of her feet, a worn lab coat draped over a hoodie that said "I void warranties" in neon pink letters. She hugged Jaxen hard, then elbowed him in the ribs. "You smell like space garbage. You always this loving." Myra ignored him and turned to Thalina, expression suddenly serious. "You're Myrian." Thalina inclined her head. "I am." "You should be extinct." "I'm aware." "Cool," Myra said, then beamed. "Let's break something sacred." The lab was carved into the asteroid's heart, a personal den of screens, synths, and strange machines that pulsed like living hearts. The walls were scribbled with chalk equations, star maps, and graffiti in at least 3 languages. Myra dropped into her chair, legs crossed. "So, you said you've got code in your blood." Thalina nodded and offered a scroll case, which Myra snatched with reverent excitement. "Oh, this is so illegal. I love it." "You always like this?" Thalina asked. "Only when I'm happy. Or manic. Or terrified. Today's a combo meal." Myra connected the scroll to a neural thread interface. The lab lights dimmed as data began to unravel across the ceiling, webs of code in violet and gold, forming a pattern that shifted with every heartbeat. "What is it?" Jaxen asked. Myra's smile faded. "It's a lattice. Organic. Adaptive. It's not just a map, it's a living system. A rewrite engine." "Rewrite of what?" he said quietly. Myra turned to Thalina. "Everything." She gestured to the symbols now forming a spiral above them. "Environmental controls. Law protocols. Sovereign permissions. This isn't just legacy tech. This is foundational architecture. Like your body is the master key to a galactic operating system." Thalina went still. "Then the rumors were true?" Myra looked at her. "They wiped your species out, because you could reprogram the rules of the game." Jaxen stared at the glowing spiral. "So the Sovereign Axis isn't afraid you'll fight back. They are afraid you'll change the script entirely." Myra turned slowly to him. "You said they tried to execute her?" "Yes." "Then you weren't just stopping a murder," she said. "You were interrupting a system reboot." Silence settled over the lab like fog. Then Myra leaned back, sighing. "You know, big bro, when you said you were staying off-grid to avoid family drama, I thought that meant, like, smugglers and hangovers. Not rewriting the universe with your alien soulmate." "I didn't say soulmate." Myra grinned. "Your bond levels say otherwise. Neural sync's already at 61%. You're practically finishing each other's brainwaves." Jaxen glanced at Thalina, who raised an amused brow. "I did warn you." He turned back to Myra. "Can we hide this? Scramble the signal?" She hesitated. "Not really. Once you sync at this level, your bond emits a unique frequency. A beacon. Meaning. Myra looked at them both. Anyone hunting you already knows where to look. Later, when Thalina sat alone in the lab's dim corner, Jaxen found her studying the spiral projections still curling across the ceiling like celestial DNA. "Is it true?" he asked gently. "You never wanted this." She nodded. "I was bred for knowledge, not war. I studied light harmonics, not power politics. And yet, you're at the center of all of it." She looked at him, something raw flickering behind her composure. "I'm the last of my kind. And now I carry all their ghosts, in code." Jaxen stepped closer. "Not alone. I can't ask you to carry this." "You didn't ask," he said. "I claimed you." She blinked at that. Then smiled. It wasn't a smile for show. It was a homecoming smile, like for a second, she remembered who she was before the running. He reached for her hand. This time, she took his. And above them, the spiral pulsed once, gently, like it had a heartbeat of its own. The spiral of code hovered in the air, pulsing with light no human hand had designed. Not mere data. Not language. It was music, translated into geometry, a living resonance, woven into the blood of the last Myrian. Myra stood on the lab platform, eyes wide, mouth slightly open, hands trembling above her console. "It's not just architecture," she breathed. "It's a shatter key?" Thalina blinked. "Eh, what?" Myra looked down, the weight of what she'd discovered sinking in. "A coded frequency designed to disrupt command systems at the root level. It doesn't just override, it unravels." Jaxen crossed his arms. "What kind of systems?" "All of them," Myra whispered. "Legal hierarchies. Military protocols. AI loyalty matrices. Genetic suppression algorithms. Everything the sovereign axis uses to keep their grip tight." Silence bloomed like vacuum. "Why would your people build something like that?" Jaxen asked, his voice a whisper. Thalina stared at the spiral, her expression unreadable. "Because we foresaw this. Power consolidates. Control ossifies. There had to be a fail-safe." Jaxen rubbed the back of his neck. "So, let me get this straight. If we activate this key, the entire axis could collapse." "Not instantly," Myra said. "But their infrastructure would fracture. Civil unrest. Military confusion. Information chaos." Thalina turned toward them both, her voice quiet but firm. "Billions of lives would be affected. Not all of them guilty." "And if we do nothing?" Jaxen asked. "They hunt me. They kill me. Then they hunt the next anomaly. The next rebellion. And so on until every voice becomes silence." No one spoke for a while. Even the hum of the ships seemed to pause, waiting. Jaxen looked between them, his genius sister, wide-eyed and afraid, and Thalina, radiant with fury barely hidden behind restraint. A living weapon who hadn't asked to be one. He took a breath. What would it take to activate it? Myra hesitated. Two things. One, a full neural pairing. Not just emotional proximity. A full bond, through the old ritual. Two, a vector to transmit the code into the axis lattice. Something close to the central hub. Earth, maybe. Or Core Station Prime. Earth's out, Jaxen said. Too fortified. Thalina turned toward him. Then we go to Prime. Jaxen gave a dry laugh. You say that like it's a casual road trip. She stepped closer. It's not a trip. It's a decision. To stop being hunted. To stop hiding. To say, we are the anomaly, and we will not be erased. His throat tightened. She made it sound beautiful. And terrifying. He wanted to say yes. But there's something you should know, he said quietly. Before we bond fully. Thalina's expression shifted. What is it? I'm not just some rogue hauler, he began. I come from a bloodline the Axis fears nearly as much as yours. My grandfather, he's a counselor. One of Earth's top war architects. My sister's the prodigy. I ran away because I didn't want to be anyone's tool. Thalina watched him for a long moment. And now I'm thinking, he said, that maybe I was born with sharp edges for a reason. She stepped into his space. You're afraid of what you'll become. I'm afraid of liking it. Her hand cupped his cheek. Then we keep each other balanced. He exhaled slowly, closing his eyes. And the ritual? It's not sex, she said gently. It's resonance. Alignment. But intimacy is part of it. He opened his eyes. You still want this? She nodded once. I choose you. Not just because I need you. But because you see me. Not the code. Not the key. Me. His heart stuttered. Then let's light a fuse, he said, voice low. Together. That night, under the hum of low ship light and the murmur of stars beyond the hull, Jaxen and Thalina stood in the center of the spiral projection. Myra left the room without a word. Some moments didn't need witnesses. Thalina extended both hands. Repeat after me. Jaxen nodded. In light, I see your shadow. In light, I see your shadow, he said, his voice cracking. In chaos, I trust your core. In chaos, I trust your core. In this bond, I offer truth. In this bond, I offer truth. She stepped closer. Their foreheads touched. The spiral spun faster, narrowing, funneling into their joined hands. And then, with a soft sound like a chord being struck in the bones of the ship, it sank into their skin. His chest burned. Her breath hitched. The air shimmered with raw, invisible power as the bond took root, permanently etched into their neural pathways. The shatter key had its vessel. And its voice. They woke tangled together on the floor of the projection chamber, wrapped in silence and slow breathing. Thalina's head rested on Jaxen's shoulder. Her skin shimmered brighter than he'd ever seen, like moonlight soaked in stardust. The patterns that had once looked like constellations were now moving, pulsing softly beneath her skin in rhythm with her breath. Not just light. Code. Jaxen traced one with a fingertip. It shifted, as if responding to him. Not recoiling, welcoming. Is it supposed to do that? He asked quietly. Thalina opened her eyes, greener now, radiant. The code recognizes us. The bond, it's real. Fully active. You say that like we just turned on a very dangerous spaceship. In a way, we did. She sat up, stretching. Energy sparked across her arms as she moved. The air around her shimmered slightly, subtle but unmistakable. You're glowing, he murmured. I am the key now, she said. No more hiding it. And you're okay with that? Thalina turned toward him, searching his face. I'm not afraid anymore, she said. Because I'm not alone. A quiet knock broke the moment. Myra popped her head in, her eyes wide with scientific glee. So, Your neural readings just spiked hard enough to trip the station's sensors. Also, your bond signature? It's now broadcasting a resonance pattern across 8-axis frequencies. Congratulations! You're officially a galactic anomaly. Jaxen groaned. That's bad, isn't it? Oh yeah, Myra said. They'll come running. Which means you've got maybe 12 hours before someone tries to crash this party. Thalina stood, already pulling on her dark cloak. Then we move first. Myra handed Jaxen a data stick. Flight plan to Core Station Prime. It'll get you past the outer perimeter and into one of the old signal vaults near the quantum spine. Transmission vector? Thalina asked. Once you're inside, your bond will sync with a root protocol layer. One touch and the shatter key uploads itself. Jaxen frowned. What happens after that? Myra's smile faded. The axis falls apart. By nightfall, they were back aboard the Paradox Vein, prepping for launch. But something had changed. Jaxen could feel it in the way Thalina moved, less like someone running, more like someone becoming. Her skin no longer shimmered only in darkness, it responded to ambient light, feeding from the stars. She was radiant now, in the truest sense. And others could see it too. As they crossed a loading platform, a cloaked merchant stopped mid-step, staring. Are you one of the vanished? He asked, reverent. Thalina didn't answer. But her presence said enough. By the time they reached the docking clamps, word had spread. No alarms, no sirens, just whispers. She's real. A Myrian. Bonded. They found the key. And then, as the airlock cycled, Jaxen felt it something new in the bond. A warmth blooming in the center of his chest. Not just awareness of Thalina. Not just emotion. Power. He could feel her heartbeat. Not in a romantic metaphor but literally. And when he turned toward her, she was already watching him. You feel it, she said. I don't understand it. You don't need to. Just trust it. The Paradox Vein launched into subspace, its patched-together engines screaming like war hymns. But Jaxen didn't care. Because when he looked at Thalina, sitting in the co-pilot seat, hair braided back in ceremonial loops, her skin glowing like a living nebula, he saw more than a fugitive, more than a key. He saw someone who had been hunted, hated, erased, and still chose to protect instead of destroy. Someone who had chosen him, even when the galaxy gave her every reason not to trust. And for the first time in years, he felt something he didn't have to name. He just said it. I'm with you. She turned, a soft smile playing at her lips. I know. And the stars parted for them. Core Station Prime was a ring of light suspended above a blue giant, its surface veined with plasma like molten rivers frozen mid-scream. The station itself rotated slowly, silent and massive, a crown of control over half the known systems. Jaxen had been here once as a child, hidden in the shadow of his grandfather's coat, too afraid to speak. Now he approached as a traitor. A key. A weapon. A bonded mate to the galaxy's most dangerous truth. The Paradox Vein slid into an unregistered docking bay, cloaked by Myra's backdoor protocol, a trick that would probably only work once. Maybe less. Jaxen stood in the ship's airlock, breathing slow. Thalina was already dressed for the ritual robes woven with ancient Myrian thread, flickering with code that shimmered in response to her pulse. Her skin was luminous now, like she carried a star beneath it. You don't have to go in with me, she said gently. You're not walking into the lion's mouth alone, he replied. Thalina raised an eyebrow. Do you know how dramatic you sound? Do you know how much I don't care? She smiled. They stepped out together. The station's interior was glass and silence and geometry made cruel everything polished, ordered, symmetrical. It was the kind of place where mistakes weren't allowed. Their destination, Vault Theta, a signal nexus buried at the core, long abandoned after the Axis transitioned to living AI systems. But the root code still lived there, like fossilized lightning. And that's where they would send the signal. As they walked, more ice followed. Whispers rose behind them. Cameras shifted. Drones froze mid-flight. That's her. She's real. He claimed her. She carries the code. The doors to Vault Theta were sealed with a DNA lock. It hissed open before they touched it. Inside, the air was still. Sacred. The platform rose from the floor like a stone altar. And in its center, the terminal. Old. Silent. Waiting. Thalina hesitated only once. Then she reached back, took Jaxen's hand, and stepped into the light. Together, they placed their palms on the interface. The code inside her surged forward, sensing its final destination. Her skin lit up, lines of light flowing down her arms like rivers of gold, through her fingers and into the terminal. The air trembled. And then... Stop! Dozens of footsteps echoed down the corridor behind them. Armed soldiers. Authority figures. And at their center, robed in council gold, High Executor Savra. Her voice cut the room like a blade. Remove your hand from the terminal. Now. Thalina didn't move. Savra stepped forward, calm and cold. Thalina Virel. You are carrying unstable code. You are not authorized. Jaxen's voice boomed across the vault. You tried to kill her for being born? Savra's eyes snapped to him. And you? Earthborn. From the Reynolds bloodline. You could have ruled, and instead you bonded with a weapon. I bonded with a person, he snapped. She is a threat. She's the cure. Savra raised a hand, and weapons powered up. I don't want blood, Thalina said softly. I want balance. But if you force my hand, I will finish what my ancestors began. And collapse everything. Savra sneered. Thalina's voice rose, not with anger but with truth. The Axis has already collapsed. It just hasn't admitted it yet. You silence species. You write extinction into policy. You erase names. The code behind her pulsed harder now, no longer waiting. Listening. Today, Thalina said, we revolt by remembering. We name what you erased. We bring back every outlawed tongue. Every stolen code. Every broken system made whole again. Jaxen stepped beside her. And if you shoot us now, he said, then history will know exactly who you feared. Savra hesitated. So did the soldiers. And in that breath of hesitation Thalina pressed deeper. The terminal lit. A signal spread. Not explosive. Not violent. But resonant. Across Core Station Prime, systems blinked. Firewalls fell. Protocols unspooled. Elsewhere on distant planets, buried colonies, forgotten satellites, long silenced languages burst to life. Memory archives reappeared. Whole cultural codices streamed across forbidden channels. The Axis didn't burn. It buckled like a tower, suddenly realizing its base had been made of silence. Later, as they watched the chaos bloom across the galaxy from a neutral vessel, Myra's voice chirped from the COMM. Well. That was subtle. We didn't come to destroy, Thalina said. No, Jaxen added. We came to redefine. The galaxy would never be the same. But for the first time, maybe that was a good thing. The stars looked different now. Not because they'd changed, but because he had. Jaxen stood alone on the balcony of a newly neutral station in the outer drift somewhere between the fading glow of the Axis and the first sparks of something unnamed. Below him, the surface of a terraformed moon shimmered, unclaimed, unwritten. It felt like looking into the future. Or maybe, home. Footsteps behind him. Light. Measured. He didn't have to turn. You always watch the sky like it's about to judge you, Thalina said. Maybe I deserve it. You shattered the Axis, she said gently. And didn't fire a single weapon. Jaxen looked down at his hands. Feels like I didn't do enough. You did what they couldn't, you stayed. He finally turned. She wore no robes now, no battle garb, no shimmer disguise. Just loose earth-tone clothes from the new colony's shared wardrobe. Her glow had softened. Not dimmed, just settled. Like a sun that had finally learned how to rest. I still can't believe I'm not dreaming, he said. You claimed me to stop a murder, she replied. You held on when it would have been safer to let go. That's not a dream. They stood in silence for a beat. The kind of silence that feels earned. Then Thalina reached into her coat and withdrew a thin, spiraled shard, transparent, iridescent. She held it out to him. What's that? A name, she said. Yours. In the Myrian script. He took it carefully. The shard felt warm in his palm, pulsing faintly. You can read it, she whispered, placing her fingers over his. Because the bond rewrote you too? He looked up at her. I don't want to be who I was. Then don't, she said. We weren't made to carry our ancestors. We were made to rewrite them. He kissed her then. No desperation. No fear. Just certainty. When they broke apart, she asked, So, what now, Captain Roe? He laughed softly. Never call me that. Then what do I call you? Jaxen stared at the rising light over the new colony, the one they'd both helped build, from the dust of empires and the ash of extinction. I don't know, he said. Something new. She nodded. We'll choose it together. 3 weeks later. In the Council Reformation Assembly. The chamber buzzed with noise. Dozens of species. Hundreds of languages. All of them waiting to hear from the bonded pair who broke the system. Jaxen adjusted his simple, dark collar. No medals. No family crest. No rank. When Thalina stepped beside him, the crowd fell into stunned silence. He took the podium not as a symbol. Not as a savior. Just, as himself. I am Jaxen Roe, he began, his voice calm and strong. And I am not here to rule. He looked at Thalina. I'm here because someone I love was almost erased for existing. And because I spent too long pretending to be smaller than I am. Thalina stepped up beside him. Her voice carried like music laced with truth. I am Thalina Virel. The last Myrian. And now, the first of something new. Gasps. Whispers. Not of fear. Of possibility. We are bonded by law, yes, Jaxen said. But more than that, by choice. Not because our bloodlines demanded it. But because our future deserved it. Thalina smiled. And we believe yours does too. The crowd erupted not in chaos, but in hope. They had not come to be obeyed. They had come to offer a new name. One the galaxy would speak not in fear, but in memory. Later that night, back on their ship, no longer the Paradox Vane, but renamed the First Light, Jaxen lay beside Thalina under the soft glow of the star map. "You still think this was a terrible idea?" she teased, tracing one of the constellation lines on his arm, the newest edition of their bond. "No," he murmured. "Terrible ideas don't feel this good." She laughed softly, leaned into him, and whispered, "Say it." He knew what she meant. He said it without hesitation. "I choose you." Again. And again. Until the stars forget their names. Epilogue, a whisper in the blood. In the archives of a distant world, a new language began to appear in databases. In old libraries, scripts once banned began rewriting themselves into the official codex. And somewhere, light years from the first kiss, two signatures appeared at the bottom of the Reformation Charter. Jaxen Roe. Thalina Virel. And beneath them, founders of the Free Horizon Accord. Because sometimes, saving a life doesn't just change your path. Sometimes it writes a new map entirely. So tell me, if you could stop a genocide with a single word, would you say it? Jaxen did, and what began as a reckless rescue became a legend. In Thalina, he didn't just find a partner. He found purpose. And together, they didn't just survive, they gave the galaxy a new language, one that remembered what the old one tried to erase. But that's just their story. Now I want to hear yours. Which part struck you most? The forged bond, the forbidden code, the chaos of rewriting your own legacy? Or maybe, like me, you're wondering what you'd do if the person who saved you also scared you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's unravel the stars together.